Welcome to Journey into Irish Music, the podcast. And this is an episode I like to call the Craic. What's the Craic? Well, basically, Craic is an Irish term for what happens when you get together with your friends. Fun, chat, music, you name it. I was able to get Bob Banerjee and John McCann of Corned Beef and Curry together for a bit of the Craic. We talked a long while, but the stories that made everyone laugh the most were about their friend Justin Strzelczyk. Justin was an NFL offensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He also took music lessons from John and even played banjo on John's album, This Day. He was a kind and amazing person who unfortunately died in 2004. His personality was as big as he was, and he is fondly remembered here by John and Bob. Unfortunately, there were some audio issues, so I had to use the stream audio, but the stories were so fun I couldn't bear to lose them. So here we are. What's the Craic? The history of Irish music is as rich and magical as the island itself. Join me as we travel across Ireland and even down to the local pub to discover what makes Irish music so fascinating. This is Journey into Irish Music. So here's another question for you. You seem to sort of, probably through the virtue of being talented and a great performer yourself, seem to attract other talented performers, Bob and Justin Strzelczyk. So tell me about how that collaboration came about.
Well, I'm from Lackawanna, New York, which is south of Buffalo, and Justin, his dad, he was a teacher in South Buffalo, and Justin went to West Seneca, which is another just right buckles right up with them, And when he became a Pittsburgh Steeler, he was still coming back and forth from Buffalo. And there was a musician friend of mine by the name of Gino McManus that plays in Buffalo, and Justin had seen him, and they were talking, and Gino said, I got a good friend. I helped Gino play early on. I gave Gino lessons and stuff.
Okay, cool.
And he said, Justin wanted to learn guitar at that time. And he goes, and Gino said, my friend John McCann lives in Pittsburgh. He's a great guy, and he performs out, want to go out and stuff. And so you can get in touch with him, and I'm sure, he can teach you stuff. So I get a call from Justin, and I was playing at this place, a Getaway Cafe. I told him I played there for 22 years. But he goes, well, I'd like to come in and hear you. And he goes, I'm just going to try to be like nonchalant. Okay, so I'll just come in and I'll just sit in the bar. He goes, but so he comes in. And he's sort of
now, let me pause you right there because I want to set the scene for our listeners who may not be in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are a religion in Pittsburgh. Even if you are not a sports fan, you basically kneel at the altar of the Steelers. So when someone becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler, the town adopts you. And so it's tough to go out in public. So I just wanted to set that scene and why he was like, okay, I want to sneak in and sit in the back and sort of not disturb anybody.
Yeah, and he was also such a Grizzly Adams looking guy. I mean, he was 6'6", probably, 320, long, dark hair, big full beard, and he used to wear the plaid stuff, and he had two different Harleys, Hopper, and so he comes in and he looks at me, he tries to be sit at the bar, he's shy, so even if he wasn't a Steeler, you're not going to miss this guy. Everybody's going to look at him because they're just so impressed with his size, and so he listened, and he was, and every time, even after we became better friends and stuff like that, he was one of those people that when there was a band playing and stuff, and if you talked to him, he would shush you. He paid attention to the music. He loved music, and and he used to stop at my house all the time. I was just telling Bob a good story about when my daughter was really small. I have two daughters, but this one was, and he pulls up in his black truck, and it was a nice summer day kind of thing. And she's looking out, and she's like about 3, and she sees him get out, and she's looking at him, And she goes, Dad, who's that? And I go, that's Justin. He's coming in the house to visit me. And she goes, does he like kids? It's like, oh,
That's awesome.
yeah. So he would come a lot of times after practice and stuff like that, and he would come to my house, and I taught him songs. And you can look him up on YouTube too. There's a few stories about him, and you will even hear him sing a little bit. He was a big Neil Young fan. You know, he used to, and he played the harmonica a little bit too. He liked the song "Comes a Time." He would play a lot, and he could play the harmonica part to Piano Man, Billy Joel's Piano Man and stuff. And he loved, and he would. I learned that the best thing to do with him was not talk about football, you know, because he wanted to talk about music. In football, well, I mean, actually, with what happened to him, you know, is a tragedy. But one of the things he did say to me is, he goes, I don't like to talk about football. He goes, John, you just wouldn't believe how hard it is. And I go, well, he goes, you got to understand. He goes, I'm a lineman. He goes, every single play I'm in, one of the toughest guys in the world hits me as hard as he can. You know, he said, it kicks your ass. You know? And he said, Reggie White. He said, huh.
A legend, Reggie White.
He beats the shit out of him. He beats the shit out of everybody. It's easy. You know, he goes, he's the worst. But, you know. But yeah, so he didn't like to talk about it much. But he would come to the poorhouse, and he would plug. Then, you know, he started to learn how to play the banjo. And one of the things he said, well, no, you know, there's so many guitar players. So, you know, there's not a ton of banjo players. Maybe I have a better chance of being noticed a little bit as a banjo.
And way ahead of his time, if you think about it.
Yeah.
There was sort of a banjo wave there in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, and he was learning a lot of stuff. He had a lot of like the little banjo capos and the one for, you know, the drone string, and he was coming along pretty good, you know, and he really dedicated. You know, he loved music. You know, he loved other sports too. You know, he liked hockey and basketball. You know, he got hurt. You know, it was a bad move on his part. He got hurt playing hockey when he was already hurt playing football. The coach wasn't too happy about that. But, you know, like he was talking to me one day and he goes, you know what, John, you know, this is after he was cut from the Steelers and stuff. He goes, I really miss playing hockey.
Of all things, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was a funny guy. One of my favorite stories about him is he loved his riding the motorcycles, you know, and he was on McKnight Road, and he had his chopper, and he said he came over the hill. He's coming from south to north, you know. He said it was really late at night. He said it was a beautiful night though. He came over, and all of a sudden there was all these cones and stuff, and it took him by surprise. And he spun out, and he said he was going really fast. And he flew off the bike, and he was hitting the ground. He's rolling, and the bike was rolling and rolling. He figured, well, you know, my career's over, but you know, hopefully, you know. And so he goes, and he said it was so late, there was no cars around or anything, you know. And he's laying there, you know, and he sits up, you know. He had a leather coat on. He said it was all tore up, and he said his knees were scraped up, you know, and stuff. But he's, you know, he's checking his body out, and everything's okay. I'm not screwed up. And then he goes over to the bike, and the handlebars are all bent, you know, and the headlights broke and all dented up and stuff. He started it up, and it started. He goes, holy shit! So he takes the thing, and he drives it home, you know. And he almost got killed, you know, and he didn't get, you know, he had been having a good time. He didn't get in trouble. He goes, I take the bike home, and I get in, you know, to the driveway, and he goes, you know, I guess, man, this is a pretty lucky night, you know. A lot of bad things could happen. He goes, you know what though? It was still a really nice night. I had another motorcycle, so I took that one out. We went out riding again. You know, I thought, man, don't you know when you're really
unstoppable.
Pushing your luck.
Unstoppable. That's a great story. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. The whole story is amazing.
Yeah, you can't make up shit like that.
And I told you my favorite story was during the process of recording this day. This was basically in the top floor of somebody's
house. Yeah, studio.
And so this is the house studio, and his control room was in a closet size kind of thing where, you know, it's great. You had the wall between the performing room, the studio room, and where it was. So again, I knew Justin was involved in the project, but I'd never met the guy. I don't know him, you know. He's a Steeler, for Pete's sake. I'm a plebe. And so I just remember having the headphones on, listening intently to the tune as it's going. And all of a sudden, it was just this thing where all the light in the room went out. And the reason that all the light in the room went out is because Justin was standing in the doorway. And when I mean standing in the doorway, it was precious little light coming out from behind him. He was a big guy. He was a big guy. So, you know, and I remember telling John afterward, Justin said, "So, Bob, what do you think of my banjo playing?" And I said, "That's great." And I said, "John, has anybody ever told him that it sucks? Would anybody ever try for that?" Yeah. No, I don't think so. But he genuinely was such a fun guy, and he did a great job on the CD and the recording. And again, just to have that kind of personality was so good.
He had a big truck, you know, and he said, "I'm gonna come over. Can I come over and play banjo at your house? You know, can work out some songs." And he pulls up, you know, and I go, "Well, where's the banjo?" You know, and he goes, "Oh, it's in the back here." And he goes in the back of his truck and just reaches in there and pulls it up. It's not even in a case. I said, "Justin," "what the hell? You don't have a case for the banjo? You just leave it in the sun and you're driving around with it?" And he goes, "Hey, John, you don't want to baby it too much."
And there you have it. Thank you for listening to The Craic. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time on the Journey into Irish Music podcast. I'm Craig Mayhem.